Hello, and welcome to episode 40 of Trails in the Pod. I'm Colin. That's Kevin.
Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 of Trails in the Sky, the third, do not deserve the patented Kevin weird-ass intro.
That's a hot take, Kev, because you did not a weird ass intro last week either. But there, it seemed like it was for a good reason. I'm starting to wonder if you're just not thinking of weird ass intros to do, and you're making excuses for it.
This is a calamitous slander upon my character, and I will not stand.
Ladies and gentlemen, just keep that in mind. Listen next week. Maybe next week he'll have a cold open.
This week, it's 2 chapters, so you would think, double-barrel episode, but to be honest, there's not a lot to dissect in the chapters from, I'd say, both gameplay and both story perspectives. Does this mean they're not good chapters? They're not fun to play? I don't think so. I thought they were, for the most part, quite fun, enjoyable. Some part in Chapter 4, a bit less, but they're kind of there. It's a bridge.
Yeah, I feel like, just broadly speaking, it seems like the point of these chapters is to collect the rest of your party member. And that there's a couple of, grains of foreshadowing of things happening here and there, more so at the end of Chapter 4, that we'll talk about. But, we have this Google Doc, and it's normally filled with crap that we want to talk about. And we're struggling to find things that we really want to deep dive on.
Maybe memory is playing tricks on me, but I don't recall 2 chapters in the first 2 games in a row where we felt like there was this comparative little to discuss for plot or characters.
No, normally one chapter would say all right, maybe we can't talk just about this. But then by the second, we'd almost struggle to fit it within a reasonable time frame. With this, if this episode's more than 30 minutes, I'll be surprised.
I don't think we combined chapters in either of the 2 games before.
Yeah, we have. We definitely have. For example, in SC, we combined the chapter where we met Ren and the one before Ren, and we spent most of our time talking about Ren. Yeah?
Hey, Colin, shut the fuck up.
So let's start a bit with Chapter 3, though, because narrative-wise, what we're starting to see, both in Chapter 3 and in Chapter 4, we have this pattern where the chapter starts with a flashback to some aspect of Kevin's past. In Chapter 3, we see the scene in which Kevin seems to have some kind of nightmare, that something bad's happening to him. And then we have an orphanage scene where Kevin and Ries are talking amongst each other, doing chores. Kevin stopped being a baby. And then we learn that Rufina's going to be a Grolsritter, so they have a bit of a family meeting about that. Yes, Kevin Graham.
Co-host Kevin is still very much a baby.
Indeed. Sorry. No, but Kevin Graham is no longer a baby. And then in Chapter 4, the opening scene is more into how Kevin becomes a squire of the Grolsritter. We see him interacting with Ein Selnate, a little bit of interaction with Rufina as well. We learn that Ries has not really been in contact with Kevin, but instead he plans on talking to her at some point down the road. These are interesting, but they haven't formed into a cohesive whole yet, so my question for you, Kevin, why do you think they structured Kevin's backstory to be revealed like this?
So a couple ways. One, by dripping it out in bits and pieces, it heightens the tension in general, what's going on, and in particular, it encourages us to ask, even if we don't have satisfactory answers, why this here in Chapter 3? Why that in Chapter 4? When we get to Chapter 5, why do we have that scene? And so on and so forth. I don't think there's entirely, say, character or plot relevant reasons for the orphanage, Rufina becomes a knight and goes off in Chapter 3, but I'm going to gainsay myself and then say that we get her weapon on the gold and silver road, and Kevin and Ries both have bittersweet, if that's the right word, reactions to finding the weapons or copies of the weapons. It's not clear if they're the original or not, and they reminisce about what we're left to be heavily implied is bad fate that befell their owner. But then, Colin, I want to bring something up just now, if I may. It's like there are 2 halves of Rufina, because she used a gunbow and a sword. Then Kevin finds her gunbow, Ries finds her sword. And I think that might be interesting or worth to put a note in.
I think something that we might want to highlight that, to be honest, I didn't remember that those were her weapons, but I believe you, for sure, would make some kind of sense, is that these weapons are not found in areas that are recreations of places we've been before. Right there, we don't find them in Le Lachla. We don't find them in Grand Cell. We find them in this kind of in-between divergent path of the silver and gold roots. This chapter 3 consists of an area that is made for the game. This one of these stages that's in a more of the ethereal plane kind of a deal, and maybe there's some implications to that. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
Gameplay-wise, it's very straightforward. I think it's an interesting and a good overall mechanic. You split into two. Kevin gets one party,
Yeah.
Ries gets the other. You clear the roads simultaneously, but I mean, you can pick which one to go first. You have to use every party member. All 8 as of this point. That includes Josette. So what party members are there? Kevin, Joshua, Julia, Chloe, Ries, Josette,
Yeah.
Tita, Mueller. Okay then. So
I don't understand. Wait, hold on. Why are you repeating Mueller's name?
Bueller.
That is such a deep cut, my man. What, you think he's like Ferris Mueller over here?
Yeah, Matt Broderick. Yeah. I think it's a really interesting thing. It's very linear, no detours. Go to the end. They're not that long, but they really make you strategize beforehand how to build a balanced party with the restrictions of you can't heal whenever you want. You can't go back and get command point whenever you want. Gotta wait for the
It's true that you can't get CP, but you can heal pretty much whenever you want with the stones.
going back and forth can mean going across an entire map at some points.
Sure, but that's just the act of dungeoneering. No chapter lets you literally heal for free wherever you want, but you can farm around a stone.
I thought it was much more restrictive in healing. At least it impacted my gameplay. I was much more careful.
Yeah, I didn't notice a difference on that. I did think that, like, you're right, that level design-wise, these things, linear as hell. Basically, you have 2 paths. The path to treasure or the path to progress. That's it. There's no puzzles. There's basically no story. It's just you, a path, and monsters.
You do have some story, though, before you get to the Golden Road, what Joshua says. I mean, what Kevin says.
Well, talk about this.
So we get a glimpse into what Kevin's like. Right when you make the transition from Grand Cell to the Golden Road, the conversation turns to Weissman. Is he around? What's he doing? Is he plotting? Reese begins to say what happened. She's confused even because the report was clear. And then Kevin, for unknown reasons, does not want it spread that A, Weissman is dead, and B, that he himself, Kevin Graham, did it. He wants the threat of Weissman to still be present. It's weird. And it kind of shows that Kevin, he likes them. They're his friends, they're his allies, but he has a higher master, different priorities, different loyalties than the Scooby Gang.
I mean, I think part of these loyalties could very simply just be the existence of the salt pillar bullets are classified information, very highly privileged information. We happen to see it because of the doors, but most people, I guess, don't know about it.
True, but he doesn't even want the fact that, oh, we learned Weissman died, or anything like that, or he's out of the picture.
Yeah, but okay, let me play Kevin's advocate here. In that, if he had said, oh yeah, I know what happened to him. We've confirmed that he's died. I mean, nobody else knows. So then the obvious question would be, well, how did you figure it out? And then it just by admitting that truth, he would have to invent a lot of lies in order to make a convincing cover story. It's a lot simpler to say, yeah, I don't know.
Or he could just say the church learned we're confident in our source that Weissman is dead.
What do you think this is, a news organization?
I mean, I think if he had said, we know Weissman's dead, and just maybe said, we can't talk about the details, or we're not sure how exactly it happened, but we know he's dead, I think that would have gone over. It would not have been the recipient of a lot of questioning.
I don't know. It depends on how the writers want to reveal information. But I can kind of see Kevin's point here. I can see the point to lying, I mean.
Plays cards close to his chest. So, let's talk more gameplay. Do you remember the party that you had?
No clue. I have to be honest, it's been a while since we played Chapter 3. I remember that Josette was in Ries's team. Other than that, I don't particularly remember who was where. I do think it was a good idea that they made you play with everybody. And I did play at a little bit of a handicap in that Josette could not use an S-Craft because I hadn't done the doors yet. We recorded an episode about the doors a few weeks back, but that was after I played Chapter 3. That's kind of how long ago Chapter 3 was. And I did think that aspect was interesting. It made me strategize. It makes you learn the in and outs of every character. But I don't remember who was in which party. I really don't.
But it also forces you, because sometimes you're stuck on a boss, and an easy solution can be change a character, get a new party.
But you can't.
You have to win with who you have.
Right. Which means that the game is designed that you can win with everybody, to be fair.
Yeah, and it was an interesting final boss fight. You fought the doppelgangers of Kevin as Ries and her team, and with Kevin, you fought a doppelganger of Ries. And I felt the boss fight Ries's, when you battled Kevin, was the harder one, because his S-Craft makes it very difficult to whittle down the mobs.
Yes. You basically have to destroy Kevin first, and then you can kill everybody else one by one. Which I remember Josette being particularly helpful on that because she can bring everybody's defenses down. I personally felt like the fight where Ries is the doppelganger with the there are mobs that two of them will reflect physical attacks and two of them will reflect magic attacks. And given that AoEs are typically one or the other, and the instinct as the player is to use an AoE to hit as much as you can, that I found pretty challenging. I distinctly remember having to go back and grind a lot in order to get over that barrier.
Those are always annoying. We ran into them fighting Luciola in Trails SC one or two times since, and those are always some of the tougher fights.
It's an interesting mechanic because it requires you to think more about the spells/attacks that you're casting. And it makes you cannot rely on S-Crafts as a crutch. Because if you do, you will kill yourself. So it's interesting in that way. But it's also a little bit frustrating when you're getting to the end of a session and you just want to finish it.
Even more difficult for Colin when he remembers, oh yes, spells do exist.
Well, I've been learning better. I remember that being an episode in which I got a little bit tilted, especially since I think after one of the victories I got, I was immediately told how I could have done it better. And then I was a little bit pissed about that. But we got through it. But in terms of Chapter 3, I mean, there's a reason why we didn't record an episode on Chapter 3. We're currently, 16 minutes into this episode? I got nothing else to say about it.
We'll say, if you had any thoughts about what was the fate of Rufina before this chapter, there were so many death flags here then, it's obvious by the end of this chapter that she died. And the only question really is how.
And who was impacted. But we already have an idea that Kevin's impacted in some way, right? Because we've seen this flashback. You sent it to me as a GIF, but it's that image that sprouts in a couple of seconds of it looks like Rufina protecting Kevin from death or something like that. Clearly, this seems to be tied into whatever's going on.
The sacrificial element. He's cradling her body. Maybe he was possessed by Phantasma or something and had a hand. Or maybe he could have stopped it. But it looks like he was there or arrived very soon after. If that is Rufina's body. I mean, I think there's a 90% chance it is, but maybe it's not. But I do think it is. And Colin...
Well, we also see at the end of that what we see at the end of that chapter, if I remember well, is we have not the Lord of Phantasma, but the Lord of Phantasma's assistant, right? This kind of emo-y looking guy.
One who looks like Luva?
Doesn't he quote scripture at you or something and talks about how you should enjoy the next sacrifice? Or it was something pretty cryptic. But the game hints that Kevin knows what's going on. And then he gives you two new characters, Zin and somebody else, Olivier, I believe.
Yeah, he shows up, quotes scripture, starts talking about the emissions of dog haze. Very weird. Not sure why they felt the need to reference that part, but whatever. But on a more serious note, this really has a very interesting implication, and do you know what it is, Colin? Maybe a combination of two things. One, they're on a preset path or a journey, a series of trials, or something where you do A, then B, then C, where this order is set down somewhere. That and / maybe or Kevin's not surprised by what he's seeing. Or either he's expecting it, or he's oh, we're here in the memory garden, so we're going to be seeing this stuff up ahead then. Maybe not the precise order, but he knows, it's obvious he knows more than what he is saying.
That's clear, yes. There's two other things that I think we need to comment upon now that I'm thinking about it with the scene. The first is, from what I recall, I could be wrong on this, but from what I recall, this is where we start to get the sense that there is a guiding intelligence behind the Hermit's Garden that's appearing here in the end of chapter 3 that's on the side of Kevin and the Scooby Gang. We don't know who it is yet. I think we start to see the ghost here. If we don't see the ghost here, we definitely see it in chapter 4, which is what I'm referring to. But the other interesting thing is that Luva is the guy who looks like Luva, I should say, is handing Kevin and everybody else these additional party members. These are not things that you're finding anymore. They're rewards for completing whatever challenge, which means that the Lord of Phantasma knows that they're there. And is very precisely saying, here is when you get access to these people. Now, for us as players, this feels like a video game, but yes. I think it's interesting that narratively, Kevin's, perceiving it almost as a video game. That's the experience that he has.
Can I quote what Schwarzritter says?
That's his name, Schwarzritter.
If you equipped the iron bow, and Kevin tries to shoot him, maybe performatively. Maybe he's expecting this to happen. Nothing happens. Ha! I see you're quite fond of the gift granted to you by my lord. Does it bring back memories? This was given in the chest for a clear reason. It's Rufina's. And it's connected to her death, maybe, or something. And it's odd, because if you don't have it equipped, he says, I see you weren't all that fond of the gift. How disappointing. Was the thought of using it that painful?
We don't know. So clearly Schwarzritter knows that these items, the items have been purposely placed there by the Lord of Phantasma and Schwarzritter, and they know why they are placed there for the purpose of reminding Kevin and Ries of Rufina.
And what's the scripture? Your next destination is the path of beasts. Devour the new offering presented to you, and display your seal once more. Then shall the flames of Gehenna burn ever fiercer, and my kingdom draw closer to its true completion. So, by doing this, by going through, how sure are we, Colin, they are thwarting the designs of the Lord of Phantasma? You know what I'm saying?
We can't be sure, because if you think about
this implies
that prediction came true in chapter 4.
And Kevin kind of knows this. Kevin wants this to happen.
I don't think so, because Kevin has been hiding. Okay, we're now moving into chapter 4 territory, and it makes sense for our conversation to start with the end. We'll talk about the beginning in a bit, but at the end of it, we encounter a demon, a devil, that is very powerful. And in order to break free from a trap, Kevin releases a stigma that he's had. This seal that has been referred to. Said what?
He hates poor people. He hates poor people.
Wow, Kevin.
A different kind of stigma. My bad.
I mean, we assume that he likes poor people as a priest, although not all priests are good like that. No, but he the same kind of stigma that Joshua had, although seems to be used for a different purpose. Here, he's able to use it for great power, but it's something that he was trying to keep hidden.
And it kind of sucks. I mean, as an S-craft, Draelsphere is 1,000 times better.
For that particular fight, Spear of Loa was better.
In general, Draelsphere is the best. It's one of the best S-crafts ever.
I'll probably keep using Spear of Loa because I like making big numbers. Why defend when I can attack? If people are dead, they can't attack me anymore.
So, shall we go into Chapter 4?
Yeah, let's talk about Chapter 4.
To be honest, gameplay-wise, it kind of dragged, I thought.
No, I agree. I do think that in terms of looking at Kevin's character, the beginning of it is very interesting. I mean, yes, we have this flashback to Ein Selnate and all of that, but more importantly is in the beginning in the Hermit's Garden, Ries removes herself from the party. And she tells Kevin the reason why is because she can so clearly see that Kevin is keeping everybody at arm's length, refusing to let anybody come close. Which frankly sickens her, and she has to remove herself from the situation. Which is interesting, given that we've gathered from the cutscene that we saw, and from other dialogue, that Kevin had done the same thing to her, number one, and that she still knows and loves him enough to recognize it happening. On the other hand, we also see Joshua come up and kind of accost Kevin about how much Kevin knew and how much risk Kevin had put Estelle under when Estelle got captured by Ouroboros in SC. And here, Kevin's pretty honest. He says, yeah, I thought there would definitely be a chance. In fact, I planned on it. And Joshua he caught me by surprise. He did not attack Kevin. He wasn't mad. He just said, she got out alive, so I'm grateful. Because of you, I can see her again.
Yeah, so couple things. One, Kevin's smile does not reach his eyes. They're cold and calculating, like gears moving. And
there is definitely a particular portrait that is drawn that makes him look sinister.
yes, it's the art in general is very good.
Yeah, for sure.
Kevin's portraits are a new level.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the sky portraits are very expressive, and they express Kevin's emotions very well.
The Joshua scene is endlessly fascinating because Kevin's not diabolical. He didn't want her to get hurt or die, but he thought if she gets captured, that's the best way of affecting my plans of hurting Ouroboros. I would like for her to come away minimal damage or unscathed. But if she gets hurt, maybe even if she dies, but the mission is a success, Kevin would accept that.
Yeah, it's very clear that Kevin sees her as collateral damage. And I think it's interesting because, we had seen throughout the entirety of SC, that Kevin was flirting with her, right? Made these protestations of love. And it was playful, for sure, but here, because of this line of thinking, it seems to be a bit more manipulative. There's still probably a playful element in there, don't get me wrong, but to me anyway, it seems as if Kevin is flirting with her to put her off guard / gain her trust, rather than as a friendly, actual attachment kind of a deal.
It's layers. At first you think, oh, is he flirting? Second is, oh, he's flirting, is it real? Oh, it's a joke flirting because they're friends. Now it's a joke flirting to put her on ease so he can maneuver her like a chess piece on a game board. And I bet it comes from something real. The best manipulations, the best lies have a core and truth to them. It just really shows he's really calculating. He thinks several steps ahead. He can plan, he can react, and he was willing to sacrifice someone who he came to know and like, respect. He was a force for good. He was doing good. And put it in a situation where death was a very serious possibility. And let's remember this. He did not know Joshua was going to rescue her.
No, but he seemed... I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he hadn't taken that into account.
But also, if he had no idea, if he knew Joshua wouldn't come, would his actions have been any different?
From the evidence that we have, we would have to say no. So that's a good point. We don't know how much Kevin was able to track Joshua. We have no positive or negative evidence as far as we're aware. We know that the church knows about Ouroboros. We know that the church has eyes in many places, has a pretty good information network. We've seen this simply by looking at how Kevin has talked to Einselnate and received missions and whatnot. But as far as the level of detail he can get for that kind of preparation, we just don't know.
Who do you think would win if it came to blows, Joshua or Kevin?
I think I think Joshua, but I don't think that Kevin would let blows happen.
He's more of a planner. He wouldn't let the situation devolve in the first, or if he did, he'd probably poison Joshua, shoot him from a distance, remove him preemptively.
Shoot him with a salt pillar bullet, wait for him to get close and then pop him and turn him into salt. It wouldn't get to a mano-a-mano fight.
Yeah, just looking at the exact lines Kevin tells Joshua, you're absolutely right. I figured there was a chance she might get abducted, but I did exactly nothing to stop it. All I cared about was finding out what Weissman and you were up to, and where you went for that matter. Couldn't use better bait for that than her.
Oh, I've forgotten that he was trying to use her as a way to find information about Joshua as well. I mean, we have to keep in mind that, remember back in SC, Kevin helped Joshua with the stigma and helped him break free from Weissman's control. From Kevin's perspective, this was a realpolitik thing. This helps the mission. But from a real perspective, from Joshua's perspective, it was beneficial. He was a good ally.
Yeah. Kevin says, I just wanted him off his guard enough to create the opening I needed. Would he have done it if it would have hurt the mission, you think?
If it would have hurt the mission, no. If it was neutral for the mission, I think he would.
I think so.
I think he would.
He's not evil. I don't want to portray him like I think he's evil or he doesn't support the goals of the church or that he doesn't do good in the grand scheme of things. But he is very much a grand scheme of things person.
And I think that we come back to this dichotomy a lot. If we think of Estelle as an idealist, Kevin's the realist. And that they're both fighting for good,
Yeah.
quote unquote. But Estelle will do things like let herself get captured by Ouroboros, or do basically sacrifice herself for other people. Whereas Kevin is entirely results focused.
Estelle makes friends and allies out of enemies. Kevin removes enemies.
Who would you rather have on your side in a fight?
Kevin.
Yeah, I thought you'd say that.
Except
I probably would want him to.
Except what happens if the key to winning the fight is to sacrifice me, put me in danger.
I believe at that point you kill Kevin Graham instead.
But he's just a fascinating character. And you know what's not fascinating, Colin?
The rest of this fucking chapter.
It's long. It's too long. There's 3 levels.
It's the prologue of SC over again. That's it. Like, there's some asset changes. Instead of water in the sewers, you have lava, which means that when you run into lava, it hurts you.
That's it.
But that's it. The layout's the same. The puzzles are the same. I confirmed this on stream. They said this was exactly the same. To me, that's not fun. Grand Cell was interesting because we had a familiar setting, you're used in a new way to tell a different story. Here, and Grand Cell is in a dungeon, so you can get away with having the same layout, but then have different stuff to find in different places, in like the Fisherman's Guild, for instance, or in the Bracer's Guild. In this area, there's like 2 new things to find. We found Gilbert Stein in one of the areas, and then if you go back to the guild house, you can find him munching on some meat and crying behind closed doors, which I hadn't found the first time, so that was interesting to find. But other than that, it's exactly the same as the prologue to SC, and I found it very boring.
Colin's fetish for Gilbert crying aside, it's not even the case where the units that we get make it worth it. We get 3. Annalise, then Shira, then Agate. Annalise is mid-tier, average, I'd say, at best.
Could be, I haven't...
Shira is a jack of all trades, and she was good in the beginning of FC when we needed that. Now it's like we have people who can do stuff better.
She's primarily a magic user.
We have Chloe.
That's true.
Kevin.
Which I didn't use either in this chapter. I think I went for a pretty... we did the same party because I took your advice on it, and it was pretty melee heavy. With Agate, we need to talk about something different, which is, I mean, sure, as a unit, he's fine, but if you play this game on the Steam Deck or in DirectX 9, if you fight against Agate and he gets an attack off, it will crash your game.
It's not just the Steam Deck, it's a whole host, and it's not just DirectX 9, it's a whole very wide glitch bug. If you look it up online...
No, I mean, so if you play on DirectX 8 on a Windows machine, it'll be fine. The reason why it's not working for you on the Steam Deck is because it's interacting with Linux and Proton in a weird way, at least as far as I can understand it.
Yeah. But this glitch was out there well before the Steam Deck.
Oh yeah. No, I had to switch DirectX 8 way back when I first played this. It's been here since the game came out. It's never been fixed.
Which is, come on, buddies. It's what, a half day's work at most?
I mean, we don't know, because guess what? I don't know how to code shit that connects to DirectX 8 and 9. Do you? I haven't used the word DirectX anything in years, because we don't think about it anymore.
I can do anything.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
Well, moving on. Agate's good. Agate felt like the final boss, but he wasn't. Does this, is it dragging? I don't want to say exhausting, but something like that. Especially because if you lose, you have to go through that cutscene all over again.
I mean, so basically after Agate, there's another boss fight right back at the Guild Lodge. That happens immediately when you go there, so if you were like me and you thought you'd kill some enemies to get CP back in Hermit's Garden, well, you're shit out of luck, and you should go farm that beforehand. I don't particularly feel that it drags because, A, the fight is immediate. Yes, there's a cutscene. This game doesn't let you skip cutscenes, which is a nice feature to have in JRPGs, obviously. But it's not like there's another dungeon that you have to do. And I don't think that Agate feels like a final boss. Agate feels like I'm killing him to get this new
Fair.
character. That's cool. But narrative-wise, he's not a final boss. Narrative-wise, this devil is a final boss. And here is when we actually see some story start to happen again. After like 3-4 hours of no story.
We get some great look at what does it mean to hunt heretics. Kevin gives what seems to be a formulaic condemnation. He says, it's a formality for a worthless devil like you, but I hereby acknowledge you as a heretic to be hunted. Your chances to repent or beg for the goddess's forgiveness have long passed. May 1,000 thorns adorn your flesh with sorrow, become dust, and vanish into the void of ignorance. This is a militant creed.
I found it fascinating that he called the devil a heretic. And the chat seemed to take it for granted, but if you look at the ontological theology of demons and angels, at least in the Catholic tradition, I'm speaking specifically of Augustine and his thinking about them, you have angels, which they're not perfect, but they are a higher class of being than humans, that are very much tied in with daimones, with demons. Originally, the word daimon simply means a conduit between man and God. They're intermediate beings between the earth and the heavens, which is what angels end up becoming. And then daimones are simply angels that are not as virtuous as angels. They are instead given to vice. There's nothing about daimones that imply heretical belief. For all we know, they have correct theological beliefs about the nature of the Trinity and all of this crap. It's just that they are not nice and they serve the devil instead of God. I found it interesting that they're using the word heretic to describe that, when instead I would call it either an apostate or just the fact of being a devil.
Yeah, devil, demon. The church seems all encompassing. It's almost, you could maybe call Lucifer a heretic under very specific lenses, but even then it'd be a weird bad fit.
The only Lucifer that you can call a heretic is Lucifer of Cagliari, which is the weirdest heresy to constantly read about. Lucifer, the devil, I would not call a heretic.
May you be as garbage, ignorant and alone. Strike unholy spears of time. Kevin is a heretic hunter, and I wonder how many people he said that to. Humans. That, I don't know what you would call it, the condemnation? The ritualized?
Well, and certainly this is what he goes back to. This is how he killed Weissman. Even though you could call Weissman an apostate as opposed to a heretic. He's called other devils that before. The word heretic and Kevin Graham is very... They're tightly bound together. This is also we see Ries come back, but we kind of split over that. The devil worked his magic to freeze everybody in place, and then Ries comes in and starts kicking some batootie. She is basically saying, like, look, I'm still your squire. I got to fight this devil, even though I'm going to die if I do it. She starts to kick some butt, but gets sucker punched near the end. And it's Kevin's emotional reaction to seeing Ries getting nearly destroyed that makes him go Super Saiyan, unleash his stigma, and free everybody from this magical trap that they're in.
Kevin's not heartless. He's not cruel. He's calculating and cold. But he's not the type to just stand back and watch as people whom he loves, receive this kind of beatdown without interfering if he can. And he does. And he gives into a part of him he did not want to be made public, all for Ries.
If Estelle was being punched by a devil, do you think he would have done it?
No. Do you?
And I think that speaks to no, I don't. And I think that it speaks to the reality of the bond between Kevin and Ries, that Kevin is and has been trying to keep at a distance, but it's still very much present and operative.
It speaks to what he would not do for other people. It speaks to his relationship with Ries. I think it's well done. It does not feel out of character by any means.
You know what's not out of character for us?
Abrupt endings?
Well, abrupt endings, but also acknowledgments of the fact that we can take something that we think doesn't have a whole lot to talk about and find some crazy reason to pound it into the ground by looking at small Small little details.
We got a good episode here today. Next week will be an even better episode. Super special secret topic. Because I forget what it will be about.
No, because we have next week should be our review of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. If you
Yes.
finally fucking beat it.
I will.
Because you said in the last episode, spoil up to chapter 20 for me, which is what I did, only to find out that you hadn't gotten there yet.
Until next time, I'm Kevin. That's a little fucking scold. See you next week.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.